What's up, everybody? Big Hurt getting down with Fresh Out, and you tuned into another episode of Young Hustlers. You know, I'm here with Debo the Don, and it's not all about having been locked up. Some of us were able to avoid being locked up, and he was the one that was able to do that, and he's had a very colorful life, and has a lot of great things to share with us today, and I'm so pleased to be able to finally get him out here from Florida, and share his story. So, Debo, man, tell the people a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how you grew up.
I was born in Miami. Lived in Miami lived back and forth between Dade County and Broward County until I was about 10 years old, and I left. And my mother decided that it was in our best interest to relocate to New York City, a place that had more opportunity, but a place also that was more welcoming to black people, because as my mom described, racism it's in the air up north, but it's in the soil down south. So she always felt like me being in Florida was gonna stagnate me and hold me back. And we went to New York, and that's pretty much where I was raised. That's where I got a lot of my game from. And that's where I got my name from.
And what part of New York were you raised at?
I was raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, on Hancock Street between Lewis and Marcus Garvey. I grew up with people like Mo Chips, the rapper. I grew up with Mel Matrix, a.k.a. Mel Murder, the guy who Tekashi 6ix9ine snitched on.
Okay.
Those were my childhood friends.
So a lot of those guys who were in that whole scene, as far as growing up, a lot of those Bloods in Brooklyn, you're familiar with a lot of those guys.
Yeah, that's my neighborhood. Nine Trey Gangster was the first. Bedford-Stuyvesant was one of the first neighborhoods where Nine Trey Gangster was birthed. The foundation was laid there. And as I mentioned, Mel Matrix, that's my good friend, childhood friend. He did a bid in Rikers Island for like 2 years. And when he came home, this was probably like 96, he was spitting this philosophy, He was like, yo, the big homie OG Mac, it's what we pushing. And, before you knew it, we went from wearing Tommy Hilfiger, coats, and now, you see people with these rosary beads and red bandanas, and the lingo just changed. Peace almighty, peace blood, it's like, we didn't know about that. That was a new thing for us.
Okay.
So a lot of dudes,
Wasn't he associated with Jim Jones too?
Yeah, he was associated with Jim Jones. He was Jim Jones had it wasn't Jim Jones, I think it was Freaky Ziggy. Freaky Ziggy had a situation where somebody had basically tried to rob him.
Okay.
And Melly was the guy who got that chain back.
Okay.
And that's what him and Jim Jones, became cool.
Okay.
And Jim Jones, he repped Nine Trey as well. Not to put out there like that, but that was just they from the same set, so he's part of the same brotherhood. But that's ultimately how he got affiliated with those guys.
And seeing a lot of that growing up, man, how were you able to navigate around it? Because I know it's easy to get caught up and want to be a part of a group of people, and it's easy just to try to fit in. I mean, how were you able to kind of maneuver with that?
Well, me, I was always a neighborhood kid, but I was the kid where when my friends were playing, I was a kid who, just even going back to my Florida days, I would go to different people's yards. Hey, I'll pick the weeds for $2. Hey, give me 50 cents, I'll go to the store for you. And then, going to New York's a hustling landscape. So when I went to New York, the hustle was, you had the guys on the block selling crack, but then you had the older people who were running numbers. So I would run numbers for people. So they say, hey, you go run my numbers for, I'll give you $20. Hey, you go to the store for me, I'll give you $30. So I was always the kid that was a little bit more, I would say, economically focused. My friends were playing, and I was playing too, but my mind was always okay, how can I secure $1? So I don't want to drink quarter waters. You guys drinking quarter waters. I want that Arizona tea. And that's how my mind was. And I think that's what kept the proximity between me and my peers, because I was always looking at ways to create revenue streams. And growing up, I think that's what kind of kept me from the grass to the streets. Even though I was a street kid, I didn't get suffocated by the street politics. Because I was always thinking outside the box.
And I know through our conversations, you've had the benefit of being able to see not only the street side, but also the suburban side of just, childhood. Because I know like you spend time in Miami, New York, and then also in Connecticut, man.
Yeah.
So I mean that's like a hell of a balance, because most people who have been that deep in the streets never see like how the other side lives.
Yeah.
And so, explain a little bit about that, man, how that you transitioned into that and how that was.
Well, I think that dated back to my childhood where, here it was, my mom was a young parent. My parents had me when they were teenagers. My mom was 14 years old when she had me. My dad was 15, going on 16. And that duality of the hood and the suburbs, I think, that was a representation of both my parents, because my dad was from the hood in Miami, but my mom was a kid that was raised on a military base. And it just so happened that during my grandparents' divorce, my grandmother wound up in Miami, and that's how my parents met each other.
Okay.
Like I said, my mom was a young woman. She was always education focused. That was her thing. She wanted me to have a great education, and she wanted me to have access to the world. So she put me in a private school called Children's Workshop. I was originally I was 2 black people out of like 100 white kids. So that was always like, I always felt like I was the one black guy in a population of non-black people.
Okay.
So that was my introduction. And then things didn't work out, just not having the resources to continue to stay in that environment. I had to go now to the public schools. So now, this is in the late 80s, South Florida. Public schools horrible. This is the first time I'm seeing a kid bring a pistol to school. And this kid was from Chicago. So this is my first time hearing about vice lords, gangster disciples. Kid was 13 years old in the 5th grade. So this was Florida in the late 80s. So when you hear people say, man, Florida has a worse educational system, it does. And that's why the crime is so bad, because people are they stuck. They don't, they can't get ahead. But yeah, so here it is. I go from being in an all-white school. These kids' parents are doctors, attorneys. So now I'm over here in a low-income school. I got to learn how to fight and defend myself, because that's all it was. It was no learning. It was, you got to throw these up.
Exactly.
So that's where I learned to fight at, to protect myself. Now we fast forward. I was in Brooklyn. My last year in Brooklyn, here it is. I'm still in the streets, but I'm working with Steve Ripkins from lowriders too. Steve Ripkins had discovered me when I was 14. And he basically became like my mentor. So I would spend 3 days out of the week with Steve Ripkins, and it was a guy named Jamie Schwartz. But Steve Ripkins wound up relocating to California when he lost his distribution deal with BMG. So when that void came into contact, it was kind of like, I was still doing my thing, like doing the street promotion, but we were in the hood, this 90, 98, 99, we gangbanging in the streets in New York City. So a lot of my friends, started doing little short bids, Rikers Island, and, some guy was getting shot. And there was a situation that took place with my mom and a cab driver where cab driver said I tried to assault him with a razor blade. And I wound up having to go to court. But while I was in court, it was a guy who approached me, and he had all this purple on, purple do-rag, purple shirt, purple beads. And my mom is to my right, and he's like, yo, you that kid from Brooklyn? I said, yeah. He said, your name Debo. He said, your name ringing bells. Now, my mom's not a street person. You know, she's a nerd. But she started trying to break down the conversation. She's like, ringing bells? She's like, and something went off. She's like, something's not right. Then I wound up getting in a situation with some dudes in my neighborhood, and it was just some nonsense. And my mom's like, you know what? We gotta get out of here. And my mother's husband was her boyfriend at the time, said, you know what? Devin's a good kid, but he ain't gonna last out here. Because it's a lot of jealousy around him. And they're gonna take him out. And my stepfather always said, like, you know, you a thorough kid, but you know the good don't last out here. He's like, yeah, you got the street in you. Your dad's he was a gangster, but you're not gonna last. So he's like, I feel like you need an opportunity. So they moved me out to Connecticut, and it was weird for me to go to Connecticut because when I moved to Connecticut, here it is. This is not just a suburbs. This is Beverly Hills. Kids are 15, 16, pulling up Mercedes, Lexus, cars, expensive cars. I mean, average adults don't even drive these cars. I know I'm going to school. Rest in peace, one of my good friends, Joe Nunn. His father was vice president of UBS, Swiss Bank, one of the most elite financial institutions in the country, in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to school with kids like that, not knowing, but I knew, you know, I always felt out of place there because I came, here it is, you coming from a disenfranchised community, excessive crime, you know, single parent home. I felt like an old man. I felt like an old man, and I didn't have the innocence that these kids had. I had already seen people get shot. I've seen people get murdered. So, you know, the blessing came. It just, the timing was off because I didn't assimilate into the situation the way I felt I should have. So I was in the suburbs, but I still had that ghetto mentality. You know, I went through like a little phase of depression because I was just out of place. I didn't fit in there. But today, as a grown man, I will want to say I'm very thankful for Stamford, Connecticut. It saved my life. It gave me the opportunity to continue to exist and share my story, and also connect with brothers like yourself who have a similar past. Because, you know, me, just like you, your mom had you when you were a kid, when she was a kid, you know? But
it's crazy that, you know, when you say coming from one environment to another environment, and just like you said, your mom seeing that your name is ringing. I was going through the same thing in Sacramento, and my mom at the time got married and moved me to Orange County, and like I said, there was no innocence in me. I'd already been to juvenile hall. I'd already seen people, you know, get stabbed, shot at, you know, and all this violence. And these kids, the same thing, you know, they were driving to school in nice cars, and, you know, some of them had boats in their backyard, and it was a different lifestyle, you know. And I'm like, I didn't understand it, man. It was confusing to me. And I was the same thing, you know, 15, 16. I felt like kind of depressed, like how do I fit in? And I didn't understand it, and it's just like it was a big culture shock. But like reflecting back now, that kind of carried me to the pen. Thinking about that, and I'm like, man, you know, I didn't realize where I was at and the opportunities around me until I can look back now and reflect on it. So it was just like you said, seeing those people who now, most of those kids I went to school with, a lot of them are very successful. You know, none of them have been to prison. You know, but you don't really. It's hard to grasp that. And as parents, my mom was young too, and she didn't know the demographic of the school, although it was only maybe 4 black kids out of, like, you know, almost 2,000 students. But I didn't, you know, I dressed different, I talked different, and it was just, it was a rough time, man. And, you know, I know, to put it in perspective, I know you said, like, you know, it wasn't far from where Mark Zuckerberg grew up at, you know.
He grew up right in Greenwich, which is the next town over from Stamford. So, like I said, these are people I'm around. Even the people who I graduated with, my good friend Sharif Bilal, he went on to become very successful finance advisor. Owns multiple businesses. I went to school with these people. So it's like, I talked to a lot of my peers, like, you went to school with that person? They don't believe it, but that's, like I said, that's a duality of it. I grew up with the best gangsters. One of the most influential gang members right now, my brother Mel Matrix. I grew up with him. I grew up with him. I know his dad, his brothers. I just spoke to his other brother, Rossi. Salute to my brother Rossi. He's doing very big things, with his catering business, making food for people. But then, like I said, Connecticut, man, all the Mark Zuckerbergs, like I said, the Sharifs, people like my brother Don Balladine, doing paintings on Wall Street. Yeah. And just that experience, coming from New York City, where I felt like I was a rusty spoon. Then I moved to Connecticut, I became a silver spoon, because that's where I got polished. So I learned the etiquette of life. And that's why, when you see me, I can go anywhere. We right here in Los Angeles, in an active gang neighborhood, and it's love out here. I done been every neighborhood, Inglewood, been in the 60s, and everybody is always a warm welcome. But my journey in life, it cultured me and allowed me to be able to connect with people from a non-superficial level. Because I was around that. I was around people who had a lot of money, they had time, and they had access to anything they wanted.
So taking your life experiences and putting that into, say, a plan, what were some of the things you were able to apply from having, those different worlds come together and start your own business and stuff? Because I know you got into like low riding and you're getting into like the social media stuff. How did all that play a factor?
Well, the low riding was always there. The low riding was there from the Miami days when I was a little kid. And I experienced low riding probably when I was about 7. And there was a black guy, his name was Snow. He was from he was from like the Rangers, Florida City area. And he was one of the first people I saw. And from there I was like, okay, it caught my interest, and I moved to New York. And it never left. I was always reading Lowrider magazine, and then, going to Connecticut, reading Lowrider magazine. So I knew one day I wanted to reconnect with the culture, but I wanted to be a participant and not just a spectator. While in Connecticut, like I said, I had, access to a lot of money. My stepfather was, his background was finance, and not saying he fronted anything or paid for it, but me living in that environment and working in that environment, I made more money than a lot of my peers did. So doing the work that I did, it allowed me to have access to a lot of these people. And just, I don't know, the way my mind was too. I was the kind of guy like, okay, if I saw you, I could visualize in my mind like, all right, I'm gonna meet him one day. Like when I saw you fresh out 4 or 5 years ago, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna connect with that brother one day. It happened. But I still, I would go to lowrider shows every summer. So I would fly down to Florida. Sometimes I go to Atlanta. I just go by myself, 15, 16, 17. Have my mom or my stepfather there buy a ticket, and I go out there and I meet all these OG cats. And that's how I got planted in this game. The low riding came as a result of me. I wanted to become a DJ. And I took the DJ classes. I did the Scratch Academy with Jam Master Jay. I met him before he passed away, but it wasn't really my passion. My passion really was like the cars. It was just something about it. It just connected with me on a different level. And I did something that really didn't exist. I was living in Connecticut. I built a lowrider in Connecticut, with the help of my car club. We started individuals in New York, but many of us guys, we didn't live in New York. We lived around the city, but that was the meeting ground. Okay. So we would meet up in Queens and Brooklyn. Some of our members lived there, but most of the members live like in New Jersey, where they lived out, Queens. I lived in Connecticut, but I would drive, it's in close proximity, so I would drive down. But, those guys helped me, bring this dream to reality. And then, like I said, I was always traveling. So I started coming out here to California. And then my name just started expanding through the internet. And I had already had branded myself. I didn't realize it though. You know, people knew my name, but they didn't, you know, I didn't have a business, a revenue stream behind my name. But I think what connected for me was when I went to Miami probably about 5 years ago, and I met this guy from Cleveland. And he walked up to me, he said, yo, you that guy from New York. He said, man, you were holding it down. I was like, you from Cleveland? He said, yeah, man. He's like, I know everything about you. He's like, yo, you used to have that burgundy colors. He's like, yo, yeah. I was like, you know what? I need to take this popularity that I have in the hood, but also in the suburbs, merge it together, and we need to make some money. And then the Debo the Don thing, it was like my name, street name was Debo, and then I started calling myself Debo the Don, and it just became like, it connected with the people, like Debo the Don, Debo the Don. And next thing you know, my good friend Mitch was actually kind of like my business partner. He helps me shoot a lot of my content for my channel, Debo the Don TV. He said, you know, you got a lot of social equity. He said, you know a lot of gangsters. You come from that background in the streets, but you also lived in the suburbs. So he's like, you are like a very unorthodox dude, but you're not a culture vulture. You know, he's like, you're not somebody that's pretending. You're just authentic. He's like, man, you need to turn that into something. And he's like, these people you have conversations with, man, turn that, you know, put that, you know, on screen. Let people see that, you know, these people have something to say. And I always felt like the lowrider community was something that was heavily publicized and advertised through mainstream America, but these guys didn't have a voice. So that's where Debo the Don TV came in at. And I think, you know, all those childhood educational experiences going through the public school system, experience in the private school experience as well, it allowed me to have the, I would say, the communication skills to connect with people, where I could be the bridge to allow them to have, you know, passage to people that they never meet in their life. So, yeah, that's where, you know, kind of to bring all that together, the low riding did that, you know. It allowed me to meet people from all walks of life, and also to coexist in a car club with black, white, Mexican, Asian, you know, because my car club individuals, you know, we're international. We have chapters in Japan, we have chapters in Canada, we have chapters all throughout the country. All that, it enriching my life, and this is why I'm here today. You know, this is why I can go where all these different places and meet people, because, you know, my passion was the car. It was the low riding. Like I said, the music was first. The music was always first, but the low riding kind of, it was like a tie between the two. But my passion was always there. So, you know, like I said, I lived in Connecticut. That's not the culture. The culture in Connecticut is education and money. So here it is. You got a hood dude living in the suburbs driving a low rider, you know, banging this loud music. And, you know, I don't know, man. I preserved that, you know, through my life journey. And I'm here today.
What would be something you would tell, like, young kids out there who are, you know, maybe from, like I said, the neighborhood, or kids like ourselves who have been transplanted to the suburbs, you know, how they could try to maximize on their opportunities around them to avoid getting caught up in, like, the Tekashi bullshit, you know, the glamorized gangbanging and shit. You know, what's something that you could share with them?
Well, I'd say make sure that you value yourself before you value any institution or anyone. Invest in yourself, invest in your education. That was the one thing I didn't do. When I went to Connecticut, I didn't take advantage of my education because I didn't know how serious it was. I didn't know the season I was in. And right now, Yeah, you have young people who are coming into a lot of power. They don't know it though. This internet has changed the game. Now the playing field's even. There's no age requirement to make a lot of money. And I'd say for young people, the opportunities are plentiful. Just make sure you value your education. It's imperative, because I didn't value mine. You know, I got off the porch late. I started my life journey very late. Education first, and then two, just having, you know, patting yourself after positive people. You know, we talk about people like Tekashi 6ix9ine. You know, he was a kid. I mean, he lived in the hood, but his parents were business owners. You know, he had a mom and a stepdad. You know, they owned a restaurant and a dry cleaner. He wasn't no gang member. He didn't gangbang. He didn't gangbang until he got a record deal.
Now, did you ever run across that kid?
I never ran across him, but people like Seiko Billy, that's his right-hand man. When they shot that video, Dumbo, that was at Seiko Billy house. Seiko Billy grew up on my block. You know what I mean? That's like my young homie. Mel Matrix, that's my homie. That's my friend. Fu Banger's another person that got caught on that case. That's another one of my homies. You know, those guys is described like they were bad people. Like, you know, you that's another thing. So you got to be careful what you read and see on this internet.
That's right.
Because the stuff is fake. You know, they made it out like, oh man, these guys are trafficking drugs or this and that. My boy Mel Matrix was a simple dude. He wasn't a flashy dude. I don't even think I ever seen him wear a piece of designer clothing. He was like a really like just a regular hood dude. You know, this kid needed street credibility. That's why I say, like, he didn't come from that life, and that's how he got wrapped up in all that nonsense. He wanted to be something he wasn't because he was insecure.
So they kind of took whoever was behind him took his local environment and kind of used that, said, hey man, bring that over here and that'll help with your whole public image. And they kind of ran with the whole blood thing, which blew him up.
Well, it was like a deal. It's like, you know, you see guys in the streets, they try to launder their money. They want to clean their image up, they want to clean their money up. And it was like, all right, well, hey, you got the music, we got the streets. We partner up, we gonna protect you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, when you come from any organization, there's bylaws. And the bylaws is to create control, not so much control of the environment, but you want to control the people. And respect is always the primary rule. You know, here it is, you know, you got somebody throwing up big B's and, you know, pretend to be this gangbanging that you're not. Then you come to a place like Los Angeles, where this was birthed at. And you disrespecting these people, tell them like, you ain't got to check in. No, you got to check in. I have authority over you. No, you check in, hey, I'm here. Do you guys need anything? Or I might need something. That's a check. It's a courtesy. It's a courtesy call. You know, you do that wherever you go. You know, you make your presence be known. You know, what do? When you see police officers, most people, as much as they hate cops, they will wave.
Exactly.
Just to kind of keep the peace.
Yeah.
And you know, here it was, like I said, this was a kid that wasn't really from that life. But then also, not to, you know, diss any of my peers, they were grown men with a kid, but they were around him because he had some money. But both parties didn't have no business being around each other.
Do you think that whole incident with him now, you know, that rise to fame so quick and then him taking down all those people, do you think that changed the whole landscape of a lot of these guys who were on the street wanting to get associated with this public image now? Do you think that it's like people be more conscious moving forward, a lot of these street dudes?
You know, people, I don't think they're conscious, they pay attention to it. But you see it here. You know, on the West Coast, people still getting shot. Rappers are still getting shot. And like I said, you know, before, you got to educate yourself. And education is not just, you know, being in an academic setting, reading books. Education is knowing where you are, who you are, and where you want to go. A lot of these guys don't really they don't know their purpose. They want the fame, they want to be in front of the camera, they want to be on Instagram, but they're projecting false image and bad information. And you see it, like I said, you see it out here. I mean, Slim 400 just got shot 10 times. You know, I hope that brother gets well. And, you know, when he comes out, I hope he knows his purpose. You know, we lost Nipsey Hussle. We lost somebody who knew their purpose. He was trying to motivate people and move the culture forward. And he did it with a lot of class. He never entertained nonsense. This guy was from a real set, real hood. You never heard him disrespect anybody. Every time he went out, hey, how you doing, my brother? Peace, you know? Contrary to that, you see Tekashi 6ix9ine, a guy who's everywhere, but he's disrespecting everyone. He's not representing himself. Right. He's not representing his organization. And he's putting out misinformation. And so that's what you have. You have a wide variety of people who've gained overnight popularity, and they have a following who's obsessed with their ignorance. And that's where the education comes in at. And that's why I tell young people, get your education so you're not on camera looking like an idiot and you're not selling your culture out. Because when you sell your culture out, you're gonna sell yourself out. Why do you think all these dudes they becoming rats? You think that just happened? No. They already let you know who they were when they were on camera, open up their fat mouths. Yeah. You know? Telling people to suck their penises and all that. Yeah. No real man tells another man to suck his genitals. Because this stuff happens in real life. People traumatized by that. So if you're a real man and a real OG, you're never gonna disrespect yourself by trying to dehumanize another human being. Even if they're from the worst living conditions. That's right. It still has to be a parallel respect. And that's what I see what was wrong with that kid, and that's what I see that exists right now as a cancer that's corrupting all the young people. Because the young people, I might not be popular to a young person, because I'm technically old. You know, I'm an old man to someone who's 14, 15. So they don't see me as being cool, but they see the fool as being cool. So hey, I want to be like him. So what you gonna do? You want to do the Percocets, you want to sniff the coke, you want to do the late night drinking, the partying, then you want to do the fake internet gangbanging. Because gangbangers wasn't designed for the internet. No. If anybody's on the internet really gangbanging, they not a real gangbanger. They're not a real gangbanger. Yeah. And that's the people like Tekashi 6ix9ine, he was never a real gangbanger. He's not from the hood, you know? He put out a false narrative, a false image. He sold the culture out for some money. And then as a result of that, we watched some lives get destroyed. You know, my boy Fubanga's in jail right now. He's gonna be in there for probably forever. Fubanga had a business. Had 2 businesses and a government job. You know?
That's a cold game, man. I tell them all the time, man. You know, I never heard no gangster talk. You know, calling anybody out of pocket. If it's done, it's done. It's not nothing you talk about and film. And you know, we didn't have any pictures growing up of us putting in work. You know, you just did what you did. There wasn't a lot of talking, man. But you know, a lot of these guys they gonna learn the hard way, man. But what can we expect from you moving forward, man? What do you have on your, you know, in your future? You know, your future eyes as far as, you know, some visions for where you want to go with your business and your social media and things of that nature?
Well, Debo the Don TV is my brand. I want to get off into merchandising. I want to start at some point doing documentaries. So a lot of these people that I know, I want to put their lives out on the big screen. I always said I wanted to do lowrider documentaries, but I want to do documentaries on people who I felt were giants in their culture. So long term, you'll probably see me doing film. Okay. It'll be film, relatively documentaries, and there may be other opportunities that come along the way. But I feel like right now I've laid down the foundation. I do have a foundation. It's just moving forward with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're gonna see me. I'm still active in the lowrider community. You know, individuals, car clubs, my car club. You know, you'll still see more cars coming out. You know, I got a Cutlass that I been restoring for quite some time, so that should be coming out in the near future. And yeah, just growing in the lowrider community, but growing as a businessman and being somebody that is a positive representative of the communities that I derive from. You know, both in the hood, but also in the suburbs.
And what's your social media information? So in case people want to try to find you, we're gonna have it in the description of the video also. But
I'm 5050 Debo 83 OG. That's my Instagram. You can also check me out on YouTube. D-BO the Don TV. Debo the Don TV, and those are my 2 social media outlets. I'm on Facebook as well. Devin Gasson, that's my government name. I'm not scared to say that. You know, I don't have no smut on my name. So you can check me out on there. I'm not really on there, but Instagram, I'm active on there. Okay. And a lot of my content is streamed through, is promoted on Instagram, and is primarily on YouTube.
Okay. Hey, it was a pleasure, man, having you come through.
Yeah.
And I appreciate having the opportunity to hook up with you while you're on the West Coast.
Yes.
You know, thanks to this man, we was able to get the interview with Gangster. If you guys haven't seen that, check it out. Gangster from Compton. And he's introduced me to a lot of other solid people, Cavario, Al Prophet, you know what I'm saying? So for sure, make sure you guys check out his social media. And man, it was a pleasure, man.
Man, Big Herc, I appreciate you greatly. You know, I have a lot of love and admiration for you. I love what you're doing for the culture. Like I told you in private conversation, you gave the prison culture a voice where, you know, people who are currently going into jail or coming out of jail or are in jail, they're not viewed as inhumane beasts. You know, I feel like people who go to jail, they're labeled as sex offenders. You always hear this rape culture. And I hear a lot of people, I see like the memes all busting cheeks and all that, and people are obsessed with that. And it's like, no, man. People are going to jail because of misinformation.
That's right.
Poor communication, misinformation, no education. A lot of these guys, as you shared, they didn't know how to read. You said you studied law while you were there. You were reading over people's case documents, and you did it for them word for word because they didn't know. So this is what I admire about you, is that you're promoting literacy, you're promoting humanity, and you're promoting integrity. And those are like 3 things that are lacking. And not because people don't want it, but it's just the way this country is structured, man. It's not about character, it's about collateral. And, you know, us guys coming from disenfranchised communities and still having to, you know, exist out here. Like I said, you gotta know where you're from and who you are. We don't get immunity like some of these wealthy guys who are out here molesting kids and raping women do. We don't get 6 months. We get six decades or more.
That's right.
So I love this platform. I love that here it is. You're changing the narrative because it needs to be changed. And we need to see real people from real places who are doing real things to create real solutions for real problems. And yeah, man, I'll leave you all with that.